Hello and welcome to this fascinating discussion exploring the growing data center ecosystem in West Africa, kindly sponsored by MainOne. Thank you for bringing this eminent panel to life. If you would like to ask questions to the speakers throughout the session, you can do so using the live chat function on the SwapCard app or on the desktop version. Now, without further ado, I would like to introduce our session moderator, Guy Zibi, who will introduce the panelists. Over to you, Guy.
Okay, thank you, Georgia. Good afternoon, wherever you're joining us from. It's a pleasure to have you here at ITW, and we appreciate your taking the time to join this session on the growing data center ecosystem in West Africa. My name is Guy Zibi. I'm with Xalam Analytics, and it's a privilege for me to act as the moderator for this session. Before we start, I would like to thank ITW for this event. It's fair to say that we missed it, and we are quite happy to be back. So I'd also like to thank MainOne, the MainOne team, for their efforts to make this session possible. This panel is fairly timely in many ways. I mean, we are in the midst of fairly transformational times when it comes to African digital infrastructure. I think you will agree with me that the COVID-19 pandemic has very much demonstrated just how essential digital infrastructure is for African economies. But the pandemic has also shone a light on some of the gaps that still exist. Data centers are one of those areas with critical gaps. We've said this often, but it bears to be repeated. This region is home, Africa that is home to 17% of the world's population, but it has traditionally accounted for 1% of or less of overall kind of global available data center capacity. Now, West Africa, in particular, is a part of this gap that we are seeing in the availability of data center capacity. It's almost 40% of population and GDP in sub-Saharan Africa, but it's less than 10% of the capacity that's available in the region. So it's difficult to overstate just how important, how essential a local data center infrastructure is. Our speakers will speak to this. They've been transforming the ownership and the control of African content. They've been evolving the economics of internet infrastructure in Africa. They've been transforming really the speed at which African users are accessing content. And really crucially, they've been transforming how the region can really harness some of the new digital technologies and applications that will help both economic and social development. So these are some of the dynamics that we are going to look to explore in this panel. And as I said, I'm very privileged to be joined by a few leaders whose organizations, have really been at the forefront of driving this data center infrastructure evolution in Africa. So we have Funke Opeke from MainOne. We have Ayotunde from PAIX Center, Wouter from Hulten from PAIX Data Center, and Stephane Duproz from Africa Data Center. So welcome to you all. It's quite a pleasure to have you all here. So just to start, and Funke, I'll start with you, and as part of kind of setting the context for the discussion, if you can just kind of take a minute or two to introduce your organization and some of the work that you've been doing in West Africa in the data center space in particular, please.
Okay, no, thank you, Guy, and it's truly a delight to be back participating in ITW, even though we're doing this virtually. And for us at MainOne, I think, I'm not sure, it's probably the 8th year that we are hosting the Africa panel session. So we're really glad that we could do something focused on Africa again today. I am CEO of MainOne. MainOne is a digital infrastructure company focused on delivering services across West Africa. In 2010, we launched a private submarine cable connecting from Nigeria through to Portugal, connecting countries on the west coast of Africa. Ghana at the first instance. We've since added Cote d'Ivoire and Senegal to that in 2019. However, as part of our focus on expanding the digital ecosystem and bringing digital services to more of the population of West Africa, in 2015, we launched our first data center in Lagos. And since then, we have expanded our data center footprint. So in January 2020, just before the pandemic, right on the aftermath of a build we had done to extend the submarine cable into Cote d'Ivoire and Senegal, we launched our data center footprint in Cote d'Ivoire. And in June of this year, we launched our first purpose-built data center in Apollonia, Ghana, just outside of Accra. Growth has continued to be driven in our market by large enterprises, by the growing number of fintechs, by global players establishing edge nodes in our region. And in Nigeria, we have broken down and work is much advanced to launch our expansion to our Lekki data center, which is now nearing full capacity. And Lekki 2, as we describe it, will be ready for service before the end of this year. So that gives a view of what we're doing in trying to serve the West African region. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you, Funke. Ayotunde, up to you. First, it's good to see you again. So if you can just, perhaps for some of the people who may not know, just a high-level introduction of PAIX Center and some of the investments that you've been making in your market, some of the work that you have been doing.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Good day, and it's great to see you. Again. First of all, I'd like to congratulate Funke and MainOne for this series over the last few years. It really has become the iconic session on the Monday for ITW, and always very, very well packed, which is good. Congratulations and thank you. And it shows the interest in development in Africa over the last few years. And it's taken time for that sort of what you'd see as the addressable market and what should be to really unlock and start to unlock, with South Africa being sort of the lead. For RAC Center, we've been live since October 2013. We're located in Lagos, in Nigeria. And we've continued to grow over the years. We doubled our capacity to 750 kilowatts of IT power 2016. And we've grown to 1.5 megawatts of IT power. And you start to see many, many more of the megawatt club, I guess, emerge around the continent. We're carrier neutral, and which is something we're very, very passionate about. We've built over the years, a pretty comprehensive ecosystem of carriers, CDNs, and connectivity and interconnectivity in our location, connecting all the undersea cables that are in the region. Over 45 or so carriers, and exchanges. We host one of the hosts of the Internet Exchange Point of Nigeria. So one example I give is having every single country on the Atlantic coast of Africa directly connected to us. So we've seen a steady growth over the years at our location. Originally, we started being owned wholly by a Nigerian conglomerate, very well respected conglomerate called Jagal. And with the expansion we're seeing, we had Actis in conjunction with Convergence Partners set up an Africa Data Center investment platform. That's all been in the news now for building data center infrastructure across Africa, build or acquire. That concluded end of February last year. So Actis has a controlling stake in Rack Center. Jagal continues to be a key shareholder. So it's a very exciting time for us, and we expect to therefore start to see growth in Nigeria and also across Africa. In tandem with the 1.5 megawatts I just talked about, we've then commenced very much at the very sort of detailed design stage, shortly commencing the build of a 13 megawatt shell and core facility at the same location in Lagos. We see that growth. It will be coming live, ready for service next year, Q4 next year. And it's a testament for what we see as the potential for growth here, leveraging the ecosystem we've built of carrier neutrality and growing beyond that. We've run on diesel so far because we felt it was a reliable power infrastructure we could have, but we've got gas coming in shortly. And that is going to be the sort of base platform for us to scale to meet the sort of 13 megawatt trajectory that we have and we see into the future. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, Ayotunde. I'm sure I'll be coming back to you on that. Wouter, please, up to you. Could you please kind of talk a little bit about PAIX, some of the infrastructure build that you've been doing across Africa, and then perhaps a little bit of a zoom on your work in West Africa as well. Can you hear me, Wouter?
Yes, Guy, sorry.
Oh, sorry.
This should be it. Yeah, okay. Great to be here today. And Funke, thanks for organizing. And it's great to be here. I think first time that the 4 members of the Africa Data Center Association are sitting on a panel together discussing how this industry is developing on the African continent. I think that's just a sign of the keenness and the enthusiasm with which we're making a contribution and making an impact on what is promising to be a very, very good market in the coming years as the industry takes off. So PAIX is short for Pan-African Internet Exchange Data Centers, and we design, build, and operate carrier-neutral data centers. We do that across the African continent. We currently have an operation in Ghana. It was originally founded in 2011, rebranded as PAIX in 2019. And we have an operation in Kenya that went live earlier this year. We built it during the COVID times. So 2 facilities, and and we're catering for our clients' requirements across the continent, and that's mostly for everything related to interconnection and connecting businesses to each other and to their communities of interest. That's what we're focused on, and a pleasure to be discussing that today.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Stephane, up to you. It's good to have you here. So if you could please, talk a bit about Africa data centers and some of the work that you guys have been doing.
Thank you, Guy, and thank you very much, Funke and MainOne for putting that great panel together, and in a sustainable manner. And it's fantastic to be with everybody today to speak about what we are doing as an industry in this great part of the world. I'm Stephane Duproz, and I'm the CEO of Africa Data Centers. Certainly now the largest network of interconnected data centers, career neutral, on the continent. We are very much operating currently in 5 cities, being Johannesburg, Cape Town, Nairobi, Harare in Zimbabwe, and Kigali in Rwanda. At the moment, the total of those facilities are in a range of 17 megawatts of IT load, and we are currently announcing a probably what is the largest expansion program on the continent, where we are going to expand in 10 countries with an already funded $500 million program. All of those data centers are interconnected, career neutral, and really operate as digital hubs in the countries they operate, with a very large connectivity community, enabling content to be distributed through various networks, and really creating that ecosystem where the cloud, even the cloud compute platforms that we have only in South Africa at the moment, can really interact with their natural customers, being the local enterprise. We will, within the next 2 years, and at the first phase of our plans, be reaching something like 75 megawatts, and those add-ups are coming soon, as we are opening in the next hours a new 10 megawatt facility in Johannesburg, and in the next few weeks the first phase of a 10 megawatt facility in Nigeria. We also have announced that we have secured land in Accra in Ghana, and have plans in other countries in the region.
Right, excellent. Thank you, Stephane, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. So let's get into it fully. I'm kind of curious to get your perspectives on some of the key trends that you're seeing in the region in terms of adoption of data center colocation services, kind of what's driving it, and some of the obstacles, and so on. And I'll start with you, Funke. When you look at the different markets in which MainOne and MDXI are active, and can you compare where the market is today to where it was perhaps 2-3 years ago? What's the state of maturity for data center kind of colocation services? Are we still very much in the early stages of the game? Is this kind of a mature kind of marketplace now? I mean, as a player in some of these markets, kind of how do you see the level of maturity from customers and really from the broader ecosystem, towards colocation services in the region?
Okay, interesting question. I think what we see, and let's take it from the enterprise side, we started very much trying to promote and prove that, yes, indeed, in our part of the world, this was a viable business model to large enterprises who were running large in-house data centers to move off premise and co-locate their equipment. And I think if you are a large bank now and you're building a data center, I think your board will question that you're making the wrong decision, certainly in Nigeria. So the shared services outsourced data center model for the very largest enterprises has truly become mature. Some banks are still kind of working through assets that were deployed not too long ago to get some value out of that, but there's common understanding that the path forward is to use this large commercial facilities that deliver economies of scale and deliver the ecosystem. But what we're also starting to see are the global players obviously having a lot more interest. We see that from their submarine cable plans, but the fact that they have also deployed edge nodes. The very largest ones have deployed edge nodes. We built the ecosystem, and we also facilitate a lot of the operators. We facilitate the internet exchange. We have a private internet exchange. So with that established ecosystem and the ability to come into a data center and immediately access all the networks, all the eyeballs. If I look back a few years ago, we would have global players come and say, oh, can I reach this network? Or can I reach that other network? And I'm delivering a service to them, and I need to be able to access that network. And today, the ecosystem is very well established. And so we're seeing a lot more of that global content want to come in country. The other area that's taking off, of course, is cloud services, because there are applications that require data residency, not just in Nigeria, but in Ghana, where we recently launched an Azure cloud platform as well. And you're seeing a lot of interest in keeping data close to the eyeballs, the same reason the global players are launching their POPs or their edge nodes in region, is getting that data, getting those services close to the eyeballs. And we've only seen an acceleration of that with COVID. So we say 2 years, certainly most of that period, we've been impacted by the pandemic. And while there was an initial slowdown, I think we continue to see major deployments, these global players cutting through the logistics of getting new technology refresh, expansion of their footprint into Africa. I mean, clearly, that is what is driving our expansion in Lekki, and then interest in secondary market. So going beyond Nigeria, if we're bringing cable are going to land in the primary market, obviously we want to build a base not just in Nigeria and the place where the cable lands, but across the entire sub-region. And we're starting to see drivers to push into those markets as well.
Yeah, no, excellent. Ayotunde, what's your perspective on this? I mean, sometimes, depending on the market, one often has the impression that, demand is running a little bit ahead of ahead of supply in terms of available capacity. In other markets, it seems to be the reverse, where there's a little bit of capacity, but it takes a little bit of time for that capacity, for that available supply to be translated into effective kind of customer base. How do you see that in the different markets in which you're playing, and how do you guys kind of address a bit of that gap?
Yeah, I'll talk on Nigeria. I echo a lot of what Funke said with respect to the scale drivers, and do you have sort of capacity and demand, or demand ahead of capacity? I think we're getting right now, though, an equilibrium, because at one point we're very full, and now we've released capacity, and that looks like it's going to be filling up pretty rapidly, and we've got other capacity coming in. So we have to believe in the data. I think it's taken longer for the addressable market to unlock, really, than one initially thought about 8 years ago. But as Funke said, had to be a lot of work done to change mindsets, to prove that the quality of colocation facilities is so high that the board will question any CIO or CTO that talks about building or wanting to refresh a data center now, because it's a significant amount of capital that an enterprise would have to find. So that's in a way been a breakthrough, and there are other things starting to really drive demand now. Companies need to digitize, some of the sort of new banks coming in, some of the new companies, even oil and gas and so on. Now they can go live in 2 months. It's a month. You get your equipment. You don't have to spend 18 months building a data center. And those who do really now look like they're living in the past. And that's one thing that I think has been achieved very much in terms of setting the quality bar that indicates that colocation is the way to do it right now. And you tend to find in markets, this happens up to a point where you then get this tipping point and then suddenly you start to get the growth. And in the market we're in now, I think we've been seeing that over the last a couple of years. There are other sort of practical things that we see as sort of underpinning and cementing this growth. Some of the fundamentals are going to drive the growth in cloud consumption. The number of internet connected users in the country, for instance, is around about 150 million, thereabouts. It fluctuates a bit. That's only after Brazil in terms of global figures. Even Russia, the highest number of internet connected users in Europe, it's only 60% of what we have here in Nigeria, for instance. Broadband penetration continues to grow, and that is another sort of key driver. And the adoption of other modes of broadband of sorts, especially through mobile telephony. With that, you're now starting to see consumption of cloud services because, in Africa, I've mentioned it a few times, people consume, you've got the bigger consumers, right? But however, the mass of consumption very much is around pay as you go, pay as you grow basis. Today's earnings is what you spend for what you need tomorrow. And what technology provides that kind of business model? It's cloud. And you will find, and the MNOs, for instance, the mobile network operators have shown that when you get the business model right, the scale and the opportunity in Africa is significant indeed. So those are some of the growth drivers that we're seeing. Now, the other key thing is that in the marketplace now, where we have the international players coming, needing to be at the edge, closer to the point of consumption, it's just practicalities, never mind even sovereign data. There's certain aspects of practicalities coming with scale of consumption for these services, CDNs at the edge, for instance, and so on. And the indication of being in Africa, if you hear a bleep, there's my UPS is going on because we just had a power cut. And there we go. And so you will get, the scale coming in. And what we have now are companies in the region, very well reputable companies in the colocation space, who now have the base to build a much, much larger scale. There's a question, build it and they will come, or build it and they won't come. If you don't have track record, if you don't have a brand, if you don't have proof of sort of reliability, and so on. If you build it, they won't come. But if you combine all of that and you have these dynamics come together, if you build it, they will come. So you will now see a bubbling up of a whole range of sources of demand and scale around cloud, around content, and also around enterprises, not just large enterprises, other types of enterprising, having to demand colocation space or a combination of both in hybrid environments going forward. And that's where we are seeing a lot of the scale come from.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you. Wouter, up to you. And kind of the same question, more or less. I mean, how do you see the state of maturity of demand in your market, and how far are we from that kind of inflection point of fast growth, or are we there essentially at this stage?
Yeah, happy to comment on that. And of course, I'd like to start by reminding everyone that Africa is a very, very, very large continent with its own challenges on building on that continent. And so, the state of the market in South Africa is completely different from that in Mali or in Burkina Faso, or let alone some of the developments that are now going on in Kenya, where the market is accelerating. And what is really driving this, and what as an industry we encourage to happen, is this continuous liberalization of telecoms and this bigger availability of connectivity, be it through fiber, be it through satellite, be it through wireless, and that all helps to reach these parts of that continent, which is so large and which is in large part so unconnected yet. And then, so what do we see? Look, a very personal perspective, I got involved in this after my previous company acquired a data center in Marseille, and there was a submarine cable operator there said, well, you're spending 100 million in Marseille. Can you please come and help in Mombasa? I went to have a look in Mombasa, and I found a Fort Jesus built by the Portuguese in 1595, and with 2 containers, and that's the cable landing station for that submarine cable that serves 300 million people in East Africa. I mean, the difference couldn't be bigger, and that's what we found in 2015. And really, what you come to the conclusion of is that a couple of things missing on the African continent, and that's what we're all contributing to. One is the investment, so it needs capital. And the amounts being invested in Europe in the hyperscalers just don't compare quite yet with what's being invested in Africa. But we're getting ready for that, and our organizations are being prepared so that we can actually contribute and build infrastructure that's needed there. Second is we're working closely with our supply chain, and we all have the same suppliers, and they have a lot of work to do on the African continent to up their level and the supply that they do, and next day repairs and so on. That's all normal in America, Asia, and Europe. And finally, of course, what we're working on is to build those skills and expertise on the African continent, which we started with in Europe 20 years ago, and it's only starting a little bit later in this industry that we're now building. So those are the very practical challenges that we're facing. But then there's a big opportunity, and I think Guy, I think we're all aware of that paper that you wrote for the Africa Data Center Association, indicating how many data centers we need, 700. And how many do we have today? Very, very few. So yeah, the market is there, and but a lot of work to be done. And of course, we're very glad to be part of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks. Up to you, Stephane. You also have the advantage, Stephane, of being kind of multiple geographies, and as Wouter was saying, Africa is very diverse. Markets are different kind of phases of development. I was wondering, when you look at where West Africa is, and where perhaps some of the regions in which Africa Data Centers is active, kind of where they are, how do you see the level of maturity in West Africa, and how far are we from perhaps having the same type of inflection point or kind of potential kind of fast growth and build out that we've seen, not necessarily in South Africa, but perhaps in Kenya and some of the other markets?
Yeah, you're very right, Guy. The level of development of those digital hubs vary a lot, across the continent. What we are seeing in South Africa, really is close to being the same as what we are seeing in other parts of the world. In Europe or in the US, we are really seeing those cloud and enterprise ecosystems really very dynamic. It is the only country where some of the cloud operators have deployed their compute platforms in a number of megawatt of capacity, and this is extremely interesting to watch, and we are watching that every day. And the very good news is that it is successful, and all of the cloud operators who originally came deploying their compute platforms in South Africa have grown significantly since, which is an obvious sign of the success of the creation of those ecosystems. Now, if you go to Kenya, where we have by far the largest ecosystem in the country with Africa Data Centers, we are seeing every sign that it is really about to happen. It's a lot driven by some of the IP traffic across the continent. A vast proportion of it is actually between South Africa and Kenya. It is also driven by the fact that the enterprise market there is ready for it, for using the cloud, ideally locally, of course. So we are seeing the number of our customers accelerating. The growth of that number of customers is accelerating strongly. So it's really completely about to happen. We are, as I introduced, arriving in West Africa as well, in about half a dozen countries, starting with Kenya, with Nigeria, and all our customers, our hyperscale customers, various cloud providers that are customers that we are talking to, very clearly indicate that they are coming to Nigeria now. Obviously, Nigeria is the GDP is very high. The number of enterprise potential customers is very high, and the population is also extremely high if you are a cloud provider, is more consumer oriented. So all of the components of the ecosystems are either already there or already ready to participate to the ecosystems. We are also seeing customers that we have in other regions of Africa, in Eastern Africa or in Southern Africa, asking us for capacity in Western Africa. So we at data centers do not only see ecosystems as being local, but we are really seeing a demand for that ecosystems to be considered at a continental level, and that's what we are addressing a lot by deploying that network of interconnected data centers. The guess, or it's an educated guess, as I said, we are talking to a lot of CEOs, CIOs, and CTOs every day. Is that it's really starting with Nigeria, and then it's going to continue deploy, on the west part of Nigeria, starting with Ghana, and then to Francophone-speaking countries. We are also managing a data center in Togo, and seeing a significant demand for that data center there, not only from government entities, but also from various enterprises. So again, all the components of the ecosystems are present. And what we've seen so far is that if you bring a reliable data center operated in international standards, oriented around excellence, and with the proper connectivity and content interconnection organization, you are really going to help a lot of people operating at a better level and at a better cost.
Do you? I mean, as you build, is it a situation where you see that, as I was saying earlier, demand is running a little bit ahead of supply in terms of what you're hearing from your customer, in terms of the additional capacity that needs to come to market over the next kind of 12 to 18 months to 3 years to kind of satisfy demand? Or is it still a situation where you have to do a fair amount of education and kind of build out of demand before you actually bring in the capacity to absorb, to be absorbed by that demand? What's your perspective?
You will not be surprised if my answer is both, of course. Okay.
Yeah.
We are not going to invest $500 million just on guesses. As I said, we are talking to all international members of the digital ecosystem wishing to come to Africa every day, and they're really oriented our expansion plan. We accompany them. We are making Africa easier for them, and so a big proportion of our expansion plan is driven by that. But certainly we will build more than what they ask, because we want the local markets to be able to come and meet those cloud capacities to actually create the digital ecosystem.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you. So it looks like we only have a few minutes left. So what I'll do is I'll ask you all kind of a final question. Really in two parts. Starting with you, Funke. The first part is on just kind of looking ahead, looking forward. Obviously, the data center industry is a kind of consumer of power and capacity, and I'm kind of wondering how you think about sustainability as you kind of build out, kind of going forward. How you think about renewable energies and kind of where that fits into your overall kind of strategy going forward. Not only in the immediate kind of short term, but if you take, say, kind of a 5-year plus horizon. I mean, can you imagine a context in which the renewable piece is a considerable portion of power supply for African data center facilities, and what will it take to kind of get to that point?
Okay, no, thanks, Guy. I think we see considerable expansion with the global players coming in with additional cables, with the size of those cables, with the adoption of smartphones, increasing consumption in our region, reliance on digital. We see that exponential growth in both supply and demand. And I think the lag between the supply and demand has closed considerably. So we think we'll continue to feed this demand that is right upon us. So how do you do that in a region that's challenged with regards to power supply in general for a lot of the population? I think first, what we realize is there's a lot of power available in the grid all across Africa, where you have a lot of natural resources, and distribution is one of the key challenges. So our strategy has been grid first, strategic access to the power grid, so that we're building our own private last mile or private access to that power. And in places like Lekki, that has worked to deliver 94% or higher power availability to us from the grid, which in Nigeria is largely hydro and gas. And so some element of sustainability built in there. Beyond grid, and I think as we've looked at locations across the continent, we've continued across West Africa, we've continued to put that strategic access, direct access to the grid as one of the building blocks in siting our locations. The next is obviously renewable sustainability, and that is where gas comes into play. Shagamu, where we have our second campus in Lagos, is gas ready, and so we're deploying gas as backup power. And so that really just feeds the sustainability model. Obviously, as we move further out of Lagos, we have more access to solar, but I'll give my co-panelists some time. I think I really need to wrap up there so they can get a few words in before we wrap up.
Right, thank you. Same question for you, Ayotunde. Just kind of looking ahead, perhaps a word on kind of renewables and where they fit, and just kind of looking forward. Any 1-2 trends that have you kind of particularly excited or worried about the future. So I think you're on mute.
You're on mute, Tunde.
Yes, I think you're on mute.
Oh dear, I used up some seconds of time I had there. So we embed, not just looking into the future, we embed a sustainability into everything we do right now. And looking at, I really do think not just about power and renewables, but also in everything we do, in how we build and how we ensure that the approaches of what we do is sustainable. I think in Africa, it's something that we've been very active with, and there's an opportunity for us to even leapfrog the world in this area. So I'll leave it at that for now. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ayotunde. Wouter, any kind of final word on?
With sustainability, agreed. But with Funke already in Ghana and Stephane coming to Ghana, I can only say, Ayotunde, when are you coming to Ghana? In West Africa, it's definitely one of the greatest markets. So yeah, Akwaba, please, all come.
Yes, the more the merrier. So absolutely.
Stephane.
Absolutely. Stephane, any kind of final words, kind of looking ahead, any one or two trends that have you especially kind of excited, kind of when you look ahead at how this market is developing, or worried,
Well, I'd like to, I'm sorry, but you asked a very, very important question a few seconds ago related to sustainability. It's critical. Our large international customers have made their own commitments of becoming carbon neutral, between 2025 and 2030. So we at Africa Data Centers have made the same commitment, and we are heavily proceeding in that direction through all the available channels we can find. And again, it is very important as our customers want it. So that is something that we need to focus on. That's what we're doing, and we are right at 0-0. Well done.
All right, excellent. So it looks like we've come to the end of our time here. It seems like we could go on forever. I found this extremely insightful, and I hope that the audience will as well. So special thanks to all our panelists, and thank you again. Back to you, Georgia.
Thank you very much again for this amazing panel and for this wonderful discussion. A reminder that this session will be available for on-demand viewing through SwapCard for 30 days post-event. And I would once again like to thank MainOne and the speakers that we've just heard from. Join us next at 2 p.m., so very shortly, for Capitalizing on the Cloud and Edge, sponsored by Digital Realty. Thank you again, and see you all soon.